As Prime Minister Begin put it in vivid and haunting words, if an enemy of the Jewish people says he seeks to destroy us, believe him. We've seen the horrors of history. We will not stand by. We will not watch them play out again. It would be foolish not to take Iran's leaders at their word. They are, after all, the product of a radical theocracy. Over the years, Iran has amassed a bloody and brutal record. It has seized embassies, targeted diplomats, and killed its own people. It supports the ruthless Assad regime in Syria. They provided weapons that have killed American soldiers in Afghanistan and Iraq. It has plotted to assassinate diplomats on American soil. It is Iran that is the leading state sponsor of terrorism and the most destabilizing nation in the world. We have a solemn duty and a moral imperative to deny Iran's leaders the means to follow through on their malevolent intentions. We should stand with all who would join our effort to prevent a nuclear-armed Iran, and that includes Iranian dissidents. Don't erase from your memory the scenes from 3 years ago when that regime brought to death its own people as they rose up. The threat we face does not come from the Iranian people, but from the regime that oppresses them. 5 years ago at the Herzliya conference, I stated my view that Iran's pursuit of nuclear weapons capability presents an intolerable threat to Israel, to America, and to the world. That threat has only become worse. Now as then, the regime's claims that it seeks to enrich nuclear material for peaceable purposes are belied by years of malign deception. Now as then, the conduct of Iran's leaders gives us no reason to trust them with nuclear material. But today, the regime in Iran is 5 years closer to developing nuclear weapons capability. Preventing that outcome must be our highest national security priority. I want to pause on that point. It's sometimes said that those who are most committed to stopping the Iranian regime from securing nuclear weapons are reckless and provocative and inviting war. The opposite is true. We are the true peacemakers. History teaches with force and clarity that when the world's most despotic regimes secure the world's most destructive weapons, peace often gives way to oppression, to violence, or to devastating war. We must not delude ourselves into thinking that containment is an option. We must lead the effort to prevent Iran from building and possessing nuclear weapons capability. We should employ any and all measures to dissuade the Iranian regime from its nuclear course. And it is our fervent hope that diplomatic and economic measures will do so. In the final analysis, of course, no option should be excluded. We recognize Israel's right to defend itself and that it is right for America to stand with you. These are some of the principles I outlined 5 years ago at the Herzliya conference. What was timely then has become urgent today. Let me turn from Iran to other nations in the Middle East, where we've seen rising tumult and chaos. To the north, Syria is on the brink of a civil war. The dictator in Damascus, no friend to Israel, no friend to America, slaughters his own people as he desperately clings to power. Your other neighbor to the north, Lebanon, is under the growing and dangerous influence of Hezbollah. After a year of upheaval and unrest, Egypt now has an Islamist president, chosen in a democratic election. Hopefully this new government understands that one true measure of democracy is how those elected by the majority respect the rights of those in the minority. The international community must use its considerable influence to ensure that the new government honors the peace agreement with Israel that was signed by the government of Anwar Sadat. As you know only too well, since Hamas took control of the Gaza Strip in 2007, thousands of rockets have rained on Israeli homes and cities. I've walked down the streets of Sderot and honor the resolve of its people. And now new attacks have been launched from the Sinai Peninsula, with Hezbollah rockets aimed at Israel from the north and Hamas rockets aimed from the south, with much of the Middle East in tumult, with Iran bent on nuclear arms. America's vocal and demonstrated commitment to the defense of Israel is even more critical. Whenever the security of Israel is most in doubt, America's commitment to Israel must be most secure. When the decision was before him in 1948, President Harry Truman decided without hesitation that the United States would be the first country to recognize the state of Israel. From that moment to this, we've been the most natural of allies, but our alliance runs deeper than the designs of strategy or the weighing of interests. The story of how America, a nation still so new to the world by the standards
Mitt Romney, the U.S. Republican presidential candidate, talking there in Jerusalem, outlining his foreign policy on Iran and indeed the region. Let's cross over to Cal Perry, who's also been listening in live for us in Jerusalem. Cal, some strong words there from Romney regarding Iran. Will they be welcomed there in Israel?
Yeah, they'll be very welcomed here in Israel. Certainly music to the Prime Minister's ears, the Defense Minister, clearly a pro-Israel speech. Hard to find language that's more pro-Israel than the language we've been hearing from Mitt Romney. Now, he's here, obviously, to get as much money as he can from very, very wealthy donors. Keep in mind, there are only roughly 200,000 Americans who actually live in Israel who will be voting in the elections, but it's, of course, that very powerful Jewish lobby in the United States and that, of course, a large block of Jewish American voters. He talked about Iran's threat to Israel, their ongoing threat. He talked about the various facets of this threat, that being Hamas in the south, he said, Hezbollah to the north. He discussed the need for the United States to keep in mind, as he put it, that their security is directly linked to Israel's security. Now, he's taking things a bit further than we've seen from President Barack Obama, who in his own right has been seen as quite pro-Israeli. In fact, he garnered some 75% of the Jewish American vote 4 years ago. Recent polls have put his approval at about 65% amongst Jewish Americans. So certainly this is something that Mitt Romney is going to try to chip away at, this vast lead that Obama carries with these voters. But it's going to be a difficult thing to erode at. Now, these speeches obviously playing to the crowd. Nobody's surprised to hear this kind of rhetoric from Mitt Romney, but seemingly shutting the door to really any diplomatic activity under his administration, as he says the need to protect Israel is now against a tyrannical regime.
Now, interesting as well that this comes just after Obama has boosted its security cooperation with Israel, boosting military aid. Is that going to work as well to win over the Israelis?
Well, this is an election, and obviously we're seeing the Obama campaign try to counter anything that Mitt Romney does even before he does it. As you mentioned, that new aid package Obama announced literally while Mitt Romney was in the air here before he even landed. Now, the Romney campaign really has come back at the Obama campaign for that, saying they're not going to allow the media to be present tomorrow in this big $50,000 plate seating that Romney is using to collect money. The Obama campaign says that that's simply against the rules, that the media should be at these events. So there has been this back and forth politics as Mitt Romney continues on what really has become a U.S. pit stop in the political season. Keep in mind that Barack Obama did come here and visit Israel 4 years ago, just about this point in the campaign. So this is nothing new. American presidential candidates do stop in Israel, and they clearly have a checklist of things that need to be said to politicians here. At the top of the list this year is obviously Iran.
Okay, Cal, we'll leave it there for the moment. Thanks very much for